Hello to you, my friends. I am back again. So we're going to be talking about surviving the dimensional shift that has been occurring ever since the eclipse in 2017. Now, I've made 2 or 3 videos during the time of the eclipse. I talked a lot about how I felt that I was going to go through some, or that there was the potential that I was going to go through some massive changes. And the only reason I knew that was because of my Vedic astrological chart. The eclipse took place in the sign of Leo, and specifically in the star constellation known as Magha. Now, my ascendant happens to be Magha in Leo. So that means that Rahu, which is the north node of the moon, which is responsible for eclipses, that means that Rahu went directly over my ascendant, which was, is the totality of you. It's the full expression of you. So just by the way, for those of you, because some people, don't listen to me sometimes, and I'm talking about Vedic astrology, not Western astrology. Western astrology is very different than Vedic. It's based on the same science, but they do some things very differently. So when I was saying things like Donald Trump is a Leo, I'm looking at that from the Vedic astrological perspective. It means that his rising sign in Vedic astrology is Leo, and I believe he's in Magha as well. And so I talked about how that was going to be very transformational for him, because I was looking at his chart and what Rahu was doing in his chart, and so far everything about that has come to be true and more. One of the main focuses of this eclipse, because it was in Magha in Leo. Leo represents the elite. It represents the ruling class. It represents the king. And so Rahu is the exposer of secrets. Rahu is the equivalent of the crazy wisdom teacher, the trickster, Loki in Norse mythology. And so when this aspect goes over anything, it does one of 2 things, or simultaneously 2 things. It will deceive, because it's trying to, Rahu wants to show you all of the things that are unattainable, all of your obsessions. And so, when Rahu is in somebody's chart in a certain way, it can make them either a criminal, because they will seek to deceive people. They will be somebody who is focused on unattainable, which means it won't matter how much money they make, they'll always want more. It's representative of drug addiction, smoke, all these kinds of things. But the end result of all of that is that it exposes all of your true secrets. And so when you had Rahu going over Leo this past, when was it, August or September? When you had Rahu going over Leo, it meant that it was going to reveal all of the criminality, the corruption, and the lies that the government has been doing, whoever is involved in government, but it also represents the elite. And so what we've been seeing recently, very interestingly enough, I did not see this coming, but now that it's here, makes perfect sense. We're now seeing all of these Hollywood elites being exposed for their corruption, for their sexual harassment. Who's the actor? There's an actor I forget his name. Anyway, very famous actor, one of my favorite actors, but I never saw this coming. It turns out this guy is being accused of all kinds of sexual harassment. His sexual orientation is now out in the open. So he's just one example, and it's going to continue. Now, what does that mean for the rest of us, those of us who are not part of the elite? Those of us who are just average people going through our lives? Well, what it means is that depending on your chart, your Vedic astrological chart, all of what is hidden will be revealed. And on top of that, Rahu represents dynamic and sudden and involuntary transformation. So it will shake everything to its core. It will take the shadow side and reveal it. And so that can be very, very challenging and destructive. It's a very spiritual planet if you are willing to look at all of your own self-deception, all of your own attachments. If you're willing to do that and let go of that, then it can be a very liberating and very powerful time. And so I want to focus on that. I want to focus on making the shift into the new dimension, because Rahu represents that as well. And so again, it all depends on you. If you are afraid of transformation, if you are hiding things even from yourself on an unconscious level, if you are living in a deceptive way, if you are living and chasing after things that can never be achieved, or things that will never grant you satisfaction, then it will be very challenging. But it will also reveal your true potential. And so, you know, in my life, as I've shared, I'm going through absolutely, unequivocally, without any doubt, the most complete and thorough and intense transformation in my entire life, and on the deepest psychological level. I did not see this coming. You know, I thought I knew what was coming, but once it got here and as it's continued to happen, there was no way to prepare for the absolute, complete, total shift that is happening for me on an unconscious level. I'm still going through it. I haven't come out of it. I'm able to talk right now. I'm able to function right now, but you know, at any given point, you know, I can I can lose it, and I've done that in the past couple of weeks. And for those of you who don't know, I lost my fiance to cancer 2 weeks ago. She had breast cancer and passed away. And she was not just my fiance. She was not just somebody that I was committed to and was attached to. She was the one. You know, I've never believed in that in my life. I've always thought that the idea of twin souls, or, you know, those soulmates to that degree, I always thought that that was either, you know, projection or transference or wishful thinking, or, you know, these were weak people who couldn't, you know, function on their own. And so, you know, I've never bought into that. I've always enjoyed relationships and romantic relationships. I've been, you know, married and divorced, you know, all of that. So it's not that I don't appreciate having partners and life partners and all the benefits of that, but I just did not believe that there was such a thing. And I thought people who believed that were, you know, were a little weaker than me, you know. And I've always been very self-sufficient, and I learned at a very young age that in order for me to survive, I had to take care of me, and nobody was going to do it. In fact, in my family, who I grew up, not only was nobody going to do it, but people were going to actively seek to sabotage my success and my, you know, emotional health and all that. So I worked really hard, and I've worked my entire life to be completely self-sufficient and dependent upon myself and connected to the universe. And this is why I have the, you know, unique perspective that I have about, you know, there are no such things as victims, and that if you trust the universe implicitly and continue to take risks going after your true desire, regardless of what anything or anybody does to talk you out of that, if you continue to go up against the fear of losing people's love and affection and acceptance, if you continue to take action towards, your highest goals, regardless of how much money you have or don't have, or what the world is saying you can accomplish. I learned that if you do that, life can be challenging, but you will have a very interesting and very satisfying and fulfilling life. So when I met this woman, her name was Lisa. When I met her, I knew on the second date that she was the one. It wasn't. It was. I had this. I cried on our second date, and I wept in her lap, and I said, "I finally found you. I've been waiting for you for hundreds of years." And I don't talk like that. And it turned out to be true. Now, I'm smart enough to know that the beginnings of every relationship is always projection. You're always projecting onto the other person your fantasies and your fears. And so, usually the first 6 months, that's what's happening, and that's that pink cloud that everybody's on. And then after about 6 months, if you think about it, right around the 6 month period, that's when you start fighting. And that's when you start finding out that they're not your projection, that they're actually another person, and that you start to see what their true character is. And then the true relationship starts to happen. That's why relationships fall apart around 6 months or 9 months. And for a long time in my life, up until, I was in my 40s, my relationships wouldn't last longer than 9 months or a year and a half maximum. Because what would happen is I'd hit that 6 month mark, and then I'd start to realize that they weren't what I wanted, and vice versa. And then you really, and I wasn't ready to merge myself with somebody to that degree. So, as I said, when I met this woman, and I went through after that first 6 months, I was ready to say, okay, the fantasy is going to dissipate, and I'm going to see that she's nothing like what I thought I was. And the exact opposite happened. Our Vedic charts were so similar. We were almost the same person in many, and we felt like it. I felt like she was literally my other half. So the point of that is that when she died, even though I had plenty of time to prepare, I saw her death coming for about a year, and I knew that she had cancer when I met her, and I didn't care. And the first year and a half was bliss, absolutely without a doubt, the happiest period in my entire life. And I can honestly say I was completely fulfilled on every level. Never been able to say that, and who knows if I'll be able to say it again. So I had a year to prepare for that loss. And so I was pretty confident that when she passed, that it would be a relief, because that was stressful enough, watching somebody you love like that die. And on top of that, my job was to be strong for her. I was the only person in her life that wasn't trying to tell her what she needed to do next. I, would always be there and say, the only thing that matters is in the moment. And so I was her escape from all of the doctors and the family and the friends who were crying and flipping out and trying to tell her what to do. And she just needed to be with somebody, and that's what I did for her. I knew when I met her, I knew that was what my job was. So that's all we did. And it got rid of a lot of garbage, because we didn't worry about stupid stuff. We didn't worry about money or anything else. We just did what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it. And it was absolute, utter bliss. The most amazing happiness I've ever had. So I was prepared, because after that year and a half, then there was a good year of watching her get sicker and sicker. And our time together became less and less, because she became, her time was filled with hospitals and doctors and, traveling to different clinics and things like that. And so, and especially towards the end, it became clear to me that, she wasn't going to survive. And so my job was to just be her friend. And I never once lost it in front of her. I never once said, "Don't die on me." I never did any of those things. Because I also wanted her to be able to leave this world with a sense of calmness and strength. And so I always made sure that I came to her with that, and that she could feel that coming from me. Having said that, I thought I was completely prepared. I'm very strong. I'm very practical, and I was I was getting myself ready, telling myself she's going to die. You know, she's not going to be here much longer, and you know, get yourself prepared and all that. So I was really prepared to be just relieved when she passed. And I was not prepared for what has happened to me. It's been a little over 2 weeks, and I can absolutely tell you that the unconscious transformation I'm going through is the most challenging and frightening experience I've ever had. And this, what does this have to do with the eclipse? Because this is part of it. You know, she and I both had, our ascendant was Leo, and Rahu passed over that. And I could tell you about other things in her chart that were very clear that, you know, there was a very limited chance she was going to survive this. But holy crap, man, what I'm finding is that I am being completely restructured on the unconscious level. You hear me talk about the unconscious all the time. And you hear me talk about how this is the most important place that we need to experience transformation, because becoming aware on the unconscious level is what is absolutely necessary in order to achieve whatever we want in life, but more importantly than that, in order to make the spiritual shift to go to the next level. It has to happen on the unconscious level. And the unconscious is the repository of all of your fears, but it's also the repository of all of your programming of who you are. You know, you think you have an idea of who you are, but in reality there is a deeper level, a deeper programming that is hidden from you. That's why it's called the unconscious. And so if you have inaccurate understandings of your relationship with yourself, inaccurate understandings of your relationship to the world, to other people, to the infinite, and we all have them, but if you have those, that is going to really make all the decisions about what happens in your life and how far you progress. You know, one of the biggest tragedies and myths of modern New Age religion is that, you know, if you just focus on the positive, everything will be okay. But if you look at it, I mean, the majority of people that I see out there, and a lot of people who come to me, are people who are driven by fear and driven by conspiracy theories. So if you've been following my teachings, you know that in order to make any progress on the spiritual path, true spiritual power, the first thing that you must do is you must release all fear-based belief systems. That includes all conspiracies. Now, that doesn't mean conspiracies don't exist, but people who are addicted to conspiracy theories are people who do not, people who are programmed to believe that they cannot master their own existence. And people who maybe because of their upbringing or because of just the way society is, they are addicted to whatever conspiracy theory is running around out there. And it means that you are running from your own unconscious, unresolved issues. And so again, it doesn't mean that conspiracies don't exist. It just means that they can't touch you if you are conscious and if you are operating on your true programming. And that is the whole point of being in this life, is to learn the lessons. So what, you know, you heard me go through all of that, talk about this horrific transformation that I'm going through. But what is not lost on me is that this is quite possibly the most powerful opportunity I have to completely reprogram myself on every level. In fact, it's being thrust upon me. Because listen, I can tell you, you know, it was not my best. I didn't wake up this morning thinking I can't wait to get on YouTube and do it. I did not want to get out of bed this morning. What's happening to me is that as I sleep, sleep is how you process your subconscious and your unconscious. What's happening to me when I sleep is that every day that I wake up, I can feel that I'm being reprogrammed. And it's because, first off, what happened, this relationship was so transformational for me, is that, as I've shared in the past, a true relationship, a true romantic relationship, is when you meet somebody and you merge with somebody on an unconscious level who has the ability to reflect back to you your true self. That means your highest self. Now, we are not that highest self. We are in the process of getting there, and we have our imperfections. But your partner has the ability to reflect back to you what that is. And then, first thing you have to do is you have to go through the fear and the pain of accepting that. Our greatest fear is not failure, it's success. And this is another reason why this is another reason why many relationships do not survive, is because, as I said, in that first 6 months, you're dealing with your own projection onto them. After 6 months, you start to see the real character of that person. And so what ends up happening is that you have to let go of your limited understanding of yourself. And most people are too afraid to do that because it's very frightening. We take a lot of comfort in our limitations. They're home to us. We understand them. We are afraid of what we don't understand. Success is very frightening to many people because once you have it, you have no idea what's going to happen. You understand whatever limitations you have, maybe whatever misery you have. People who complain about being poor, part of you wants to be there. I'm talking from experience. And I'm talking as somebody who is now, through all this horrific transformation I'm experiencing, I'm also achieving the greatest success I've ever had in my life. My business is thriving. I barely have time to do anything because I've got clients backing up. And it's great. I'm now moving into my dream apartment. As you see in the beginning, you see me surfing that wave. I'm going to be in walking distance. I'm literally on the Strand. I'm not there yet. I'm in the process of moving out, but it's right there. I can wake up in the morning, look out my window without even, going outside, and I can see exactly what the conditions are. I can look behind me and decide which surfboard I want to take with me, and I'll be in that spot. I can walk to it. I don't have to do what I, have had to do here, which is drive sometimes anywhere from half an hour to 45 minutes just to get to my surf spot. I'll never have to do that again once I moved in. So my life is taking off, but that is also very frightening and overwhelming because I don't know what that means. What the heck does that mean? These are the kinds of things that you have to go through when you truly meet somebody that has that ability to be that partner for you. You have to go through that. So that's the first thing that happens, that has happened for me, is that I had to go through that, and I did take those risks. There was a point in that relationship where I wanted to leave, and it wasn't because things were bad. It was because to be truly loved by somebody who sees you for who you truly are and doesn't have any agendas and doesn't want to control that is incredibly frightening. And that's why a lot of people leave relationships. They can't take that. They can't take the pain and the fear of having to allow yourself to be transformed and allow yourself to rise to the level of how your partner sees you. That's why most relationships are dysfunctional, because people reach each other at whatever level they're at. So if you're in a dysfunctional relationship, you can sit here and complain about the other person and how screwed up they are and they don't love you and they don't accept you. But you've chosen them because that's the level of where you are willing to accept yourself. So they reflect back to you, you know, whatever your parents threw at you and whatever, you know, lack of love and acceptance, you know, that you got as a kid, but also within you, whatever limitations, you know, whatever, however, wherever your limit is about your expansion and your conscious awareness and your spiritual transformation, whatever your limit is of what you're willing to face, that is the person that you're going to attract to you. And so when, you know, so you have two choices, you know, people who stay in abusive, toxic relationships, and we've all had them, it has to happen. You know, that means that that person is holding that level that you want to have for yourself. When you get done with that and you realize that you need to move on beyond that, then that relationship will fall apart. You know, that's what happened to me in my marriage. You know, in 2012, my marriage fell apart. And, you know, that's for that exact reason. My ex-wife at the time was just not able to tolerate the thought of me being successful, being who I was. I won't get into all the details. You know, that's not her experience of it, of course, but that's the reality of it. And once I became committed to my own personal, it had nothing to do with her. When I sat myself down and I said, I am unwilling to accept, and I went through the list of all the things that I wasn't willing to accept in my life anymore. And when I made the commitment that no matter what, I was going to experience and achieve all the things that I really wanted, but I didn't think were attainable. Once I made that commitment, then the relationship fell apart. And even though I had made a commitment, and I did, I was not going to dismantle that relationship. She became so uncomfortable, she pushed me out. She could not tolerate the change that was coming. And so she became extremely irrational and uncooperative, to the point where I had no choice but to leave. And so that set me up for what ended up coming, you know, a couple of years later, which was I did meet the one. I met my soulmate who saw me for who I truly was. And now, you know, now that she has passed, I can see how that, even having her now out of my life, it has opened me up to be thrown up to that level. And it's happening. So this is what true transformation is. And, you know, transformation is not an easy process. It is always challenging. And so this is the difference between your basic fluffy bunny, new age, whatever, and what real transformation is. Now, I know that I'm not the only one going through this. As I've said to you before, you know, this eclipse that came through was the eclipse of revealing the truth and showing the secrets of the elite. And we're seeing that, you know, every day now. And now it's starting to happen. Now you're going to see more and more indictments come down on the Trump campaign. And I don't care what you think about him, whether you're his fan or not. It's obvious that there was some deception. Whether you want to call it a crime or not, I don't care either. It's clear that there has been some deception. And and the cover-up of that deception is now coming into light. We're seeing the revelation of all of the corruption in Hollywood, the abuse, the sexual abuse, and how this has been going on for years and years and years, decades, that people have been, you know, sexually abused in, you know, ways we didn't think could be possible. The people in power using their power to abuse and destroy other people for their own personal gain. This is coming to light, and it's never going to be the same again. This is the direct result of this eclipse. I know that there are plenty of other people that I've worked with who are going through major transformation. So I know I'm not alone on that, but that's what's going on with this eclipse. So we'll talk, I guess, some more about that. And what I'm going to share with you today is I once again have learned on the deepest level, there is one tool that you have in your arsenal as a human being that is absolutely indispensable, and at least from my perspective right now, is the most valuable and essential tool that you have, and without it, you will not survive. But if you are able to use this tool, you can not only survive the transformation, but you can turn it into the most incredible opportunity to achieve heights of spiritual awareness that you may not even know exist. So I have had to begin employing this tool, and I'm doing it right now as I talk to you, and I can feel the difference within me. And it's going to take continuous effort on my part to continue to use this tool, because everything in me doesn't want to. Everything in me wants to climb inside that bed and just fall into that black hole and never come out of it. But I'm not going to do that. I've worked so hard in my life to get where I'm at. There's no way I'm going to let anything take that away from me. So I really only have, and you know, the universe is being kind to me. I have two choices. I can either be swallowed by this black hole and perhaps die, or I can use this one tool on a continuous basis and face that transformation, face that challenge, and achieve heights beyond my previous wildest dreams. So we're going to talk about what that one tool is and how to use it. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and we'll do a little bit of business here. We'll do a little bit of ads, and if there are any questions, I'll answer them. So I'll see you in about 80 seconds. So, my goodness, we have quite a few people. I think this is a record. In a live Q&A, I've never seen the number as high as it is right now, so I guess that's a good sign. So, I do see a question here, and again, the best way to interact with me is to ask a question. I understand that sometimes people want to communicate there with each other, and I support that if it's helpful. But the best way to make use of my time is to ask a question on here, because I'm going to look for those. So Soul Radiance did a good thing. He puts in all caps, "Question, Michael." So that got my attention. So, is there any validity to diet being a large factor during this shift? Specifically, others have been saying meat can no longer be consumed. Many mixed messages regarding food types. So diet is always a large factor during shift, and you know, the way to do that is to eat what we are naturally meant to eat, which means avoiding processed foods, avoiding, you know, stuff. You know, ideally what you can get in nature is what we've been, you know, we've evolved to eat over the past, you know, however many millions of years we've been here on this planet. So having said that, everybody's different. Not being able to, you know, I understand that it's a very popular, that's always been popular, you know, a true spiritual person doesn't eat meat, all that. I eat meat. I don't eat red meat. I don't eat red meat because, you know, it's not good for me and my body doesn't like it. And there's a lot of other studies that say that red meat isn't all that great for you. So I don't eat red meat. I eat fowl and I eat fish. But part of that is because of who I am. You know, my body type is, I am not happy if I don't eat a lot of protein. Now, I'm lucky in that I can supplement my protein, and I do, with pea protein powder. So that's what I eat. I drink a lot of shakes throughout the day made of pea protein powder. Um, but I do also eat, you know, as I said, chicken and fish. I respect people who choose not to do that, especially if they're doing it for reasons. I do know that fasting, you know, my body has been wanting to fast and all that, but again, I need to eat a lot of protein or I don't do well. And that took me a long time to learn that, and not everybody's like me. So, like I said, this is my body type. And these are things you find in Ayurveda, and these are things you find in astrology. And the bottom line is that everybody's different. I make this really clear. There are some things that are consistent about human beings, but we're all different. And I think it's really superficial, and I think it's comes from a place of insecurity, and I think it comes from a place of narcissism for somebody to say, you know, this is the way it has to be. I do this, therefore you have to do that, but we are different. You know, I don't have that metabolism that a vegetarian has. There are some people who, you know, I've known people like this. They just don't eat meat. If they do, they'll have a little, even if they're not vegetarians, they can only handle a little bit. And, you know, that's, you know, and they're very skinny. They're made that way. I'm not. If I don't eat a huge amount of protein, I'm up every night, my stomach grumbling. So I gotta, you know, I eat protein and a big protein shake and I sleep all night. That's me. That's not you. But having said that, eating foods that don't have a lot of garbage in them, eating foods that are light, you know, you can go down to a lighter diet, you know, even if, like me, you're eating a lot of protein. And this is something that is helpful. But the idea that there's some spiritual mandate that you won't go the true transformation if you do, that's garbage. At the very least, that's somebody mistakenly, narcissistically projecting onto others their own experience. I work very hard not to do that. You know, I tell you what's going on with me, but I also know that you're going to be different from me. That's why I do Vedic astrology, is because I want to see what you are. And those of you who've had readings from me, you know, I sit there and I look at, I'm interested to see how you're unique and how you're different and what you need in order to, you know, get the most out of life. So hope I answered your question here. Looking again for the questions, a lot of comments here. Question: does knowing astropsychology and certain types of divination help to transverse the void between conscious and subconscious? Well, yeah, of course. That's really the point of what I'm doing here. When somebody gets a reading from me, the whole point of the reading is to give you a ritual that includes symbolism and ceremony. And you see, the thing about a person's chart is that I can tell from looking at their chart not only, you know, what kinds of rituals and symbolism, but exactly what kinds of elements you need in order to get the most out of each particular planet that wants to work with you. You know, for instance, if I want to work with the planet Mars, if I want to do a ritual, the element that I need to use is a libation. For other people, it might be incense. For other people, it might be fire, because that is how I am wired. It's how I was put together, because my Mars is in Libra. So that's what I mean by that. Absolutely. And the whole point of ritual that's designed for you, the whole point of it is so that you can access your unconscious potential. And it's fine-tuned just for you. That's the whole reason I do it. And the reason I got into it is because I was frustrated. I knew that there was something to this, but every time I'd go to somebody or go to an astrologer or go to somebody, they'd give me something that was so general that it didn't apply to me. I might have general effects. It's like saying, oh yeah, go to the gym and work out. Well, what kind of workout? What does your body need? This is why I got into this, and this is why I do the kind of readings that I do. They're very focused on that, very specific on that. Let me see what other questions here. Where do I go for a reading? You see it there in the ads that come up. You go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. Astrology.thunderwizard.com. Okay, good evening, Michael. What do you think of the yellow sky and the red sun that occurred in Britain and Ireland last October? I don't know enough about it. I don't know what caused it, so I can't answer that. Sorry. Quick question. How long does it usually take you to roughly to finalize a Vedic reading and provide your client with the result? It takes me anywhere from 1 to 2 hours to look at your stuff and then put together a reading for you, and then it takes about an hour, sometimes a little more, to give it to you or to record it. By the way, there's a lot of people who don't live in my country, and I have a very short, very specific time frame that I take clients in, and so sometimes people aren't able to Skype me or talk to me on the phone, and so what I do is I will record it onto a private recording, and then I will upload it, and then I'll give you a link so that you can watch it. Yeah, because I am getting busier, thankfully. But it may take me a couple of weeks once you order it to get around to you, because there will be clients ahead of you. So the longer you wait, the longer it's probably going to take me to do your reading. That's why, it's better to do it. This is just true in general. There are people that have waited. They keep saying, I'm going to wait until I get the money. And the more they wait, the more expensive it becomes, and the harder it gets to work with me because I get busier. So don't wait. Just get it. All right. So any other questions here? What are my thoughts on past life regressions? I've had a few, and I've had some pretty powerful experiences with them. I can't comment on which method of past life regression is best. I can't comment on particular facilitators. So I'm sure there are people out there, just like anything else, that are better and worse than others. But I've had some pretty powerful, I think I've shared about some of them, but I think that they can be extremely helpful. I'll put it to you this way. If somebody has a past life vision, regardless of how they get it, it means that there's something in that past life that is unresolved that needs to be worked through in this lifetime, because you wouldn't be able to live your life and regress into every single lifetime you've had. You've been on this planet hundreds, if not thousands, of times before. So My Coolster says, can someone please answer this question? What happens if we don't adapt to the shift? That's really the question, isn't it? Ideally, everybody is going to adapt. All life will adapt. Every soul will achieve enlightenment, however you want to use that word. But it can be, at the very least, very challenging. And at the very least, what you will set yourself up for is more challenges and more difficulties. People now, we're moving from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age. The Piscean age was built upon the fish. That's why it's called the Piscean age. Pisces, fish. Same word, fish. Piscus, fish, same word. So that's why Christianity, the sign of Christianity, was the fish. Because Christianity began in the age of Pisces. That it was right then at the age of Pisces that Christianity emerged. And Christianity is about submission to God, and you have God the Father, who is forcing his Son, who is reluctantly obeying his Father and sacrificing himself for the masses. And so you have this reluctant sacrificial lamb. And so throughout the Piscean age, there is this idea of those who have power and those who don't. And you see this in society. Medieval society is the perfect example, because medieval society is called the Dark Ages for a reason, because actually there was tremendous amounts of science and technology that we don't have. Just like the Romans, we're still trying to figure out things that the Romans did when it came to aqueducts and construction and stuff like that. There are still things that we still, well, with all of our science, we don't know how to do. And so what happened in the Piscean ages, we lost all of that, and we went into the Dark Ages. And the Dark Ages really went into this age of slavery, where you had people with power, and then you had the serfs and the slaves and the people who, literally lived in mire and filth and crap. And we have moved into the Aquarian age, and this is the shift that's occurring. So people who take their worth out of how much stuff they own, how much money they have, how much power they have, these people will go through tremendous challenges if they do not let go of that. I'm not saying you can't be prosperous. What I am saying is that energy was never, and by energy I also mean resources, money, food, anything that you see as resources. This kind of energy was not meant to be corralled in. You weren't meant to gather stuff. It's unnatural. That's the reason why I have a freezer here, because it's not natural to buy food and then store it in a freezer. The natural way of living is you go and hunt, or you gather what you need when you need it. The whole reason we have armies, by the way, let me explain to you how this happened. And this happened, as we were coming into the age of empires. And so we see this with the start of the Greek Empire. And this is why, by the way, Western civilization sees itself as an outshoot of the Greek civilization. Even if somebody, for instance, the Scandinavians have almost no connection to the Greek Empire, except for the fact that there's a very ancient connection to an original Indo-European language and culture and religion. But they're separated by that by thousands and thousands of years, tens of thousands of years from each other. And what ended up happening, you see this in the Greek, this is the why Greeks became so philosophical, is because what ended up happening is you have these hunter-gatherers who then start farming, and they start gaining crops, and they start storing crops. So the problem with storing crops is you have a lot of other people who are hunters and gatherers and go, well, why should we gather and plant crops? Those guys over there have these big silos full of grain. Let's just go take it from them. So then you have to create these armies to protect your grain. And then you have to pull everybody inside of a city and put a wall around the city to protect the people, because you have the army there now protecting all the grain that's been harvested. Now, because all of the population is either inside the city or in the army, you now have to start conquering your neighbors, because you need labor in order to do all the farming. So it just keeps expanding like this and this. The people in the cities who become the elite no longer have a personal connection with the earth. They become disconnected with the cycles of nature, of planting and harvesting and all of that. And then they get stuck in their heads, and they start creating all this philosophy. That's why the Greeks have all this philosophy and could argue on and about all the philosophy while you had this army, and then they were enslaving people. That's how empires are built, and that is how the world has been running for the past 2,500 years. It's spread all over the world. We are now at capacity. The empire mindset is now reaching capacity, and it's coming apart. And so in order to survive that, we must now learn how to live in the moment, which means that those people who hold on to their money, who amass things, the more stuff you get, that's going to fall apart. And people who can't function in the moment and learn how to flow in the moment will not be able to function. The other thing that's happening is that we're moving away from this elite slave society into an egalitarian society, which is what YouTube is. Here I am now freely, it doesn't cost me anything, to broadcast over the internet this television show. And anybody can watch it. And I don't have to get a home studio. That is the result of the Aquarian Age. Because the Aquarian Age is being able to be self-sufficient within yourself, being dependent and having a relationship with the flow of life force energy. and living in cooperation with others. So you'll see that people are going to come together and cooperate while still being themselves, which is a direct departure from the haves and the have-nots. You know, when I was a kid growing up, what you did is you went and you got a job. First you went to school and you either got some kind of a degree, whether that was, you know, a manual labor degree or, you know, a university degree. And then you got a job and you stuck with that job for 40 years until you retired, and then you lived off your pension. So you had to acquire a bunch of stuff because by the time you retired, you needed all that stuff to survive. But now people are losing pensions. There's no such thing as retirement accounts really anymore. You know, people are working into their 70s, you know, as long as they can. That's because we're moving out of that. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but it definitely got me going in an interesting direction here. So let me see here. Northern Lights is asking me basically questions about the what do you call those? That stupid thing. What is that called? The Anunnaki. Listen, the Anunnaki is a mythical. It is the mythology of the ancient Mesopotamians. The people who, like David Icke, who have been taking that completely out of context and creating this unbelievable craziness, have no idea how to interpret mythology. So the Mesopotamian mythology, I did a couple of videos on that, is just that. It's just like Norse mythology or Greek mythology. It's not some secret code about how there are aliens running around eating human beings. Again, if you want to get the most out of my teachings, as I say, the first thing that you have to do is you have to drop all fear-based belief systems. That includes this idea of all of this misinterpretation. So, you know, I've looked at the Mesopotamian mythology and I don't see anything in it other than any kind of other technology. And the Enki Enlil creation story is just that. Go back and read it in its original context. Don't put all that David Icke garbage on top of it. It'll keep you trapped. The point of that is I'm not trying to you know, be right and other people be wrong. The point of that belief system is going to keep you trapped. And you don't need to be trapped. You are infinite. So drop it. That's what I said. Let me see. Again, I'm looking for the questions. Looking for the questions. All right. So yeah, the replies are. I'm not going to type in the replies. I'm going to speak the replies. That's why it's helpful to ask the question. Question: are to submit to tithing? What is that? That's a Christian thing. I'm not a Christian. So you don't have to tithe to me or anybody. I don't do that. All right, so that's it for the questions. We're up to 55 people watching. That's pretty cool. All right, so all right, here's a question. Witcher says, if you know which house Ketu is Rahu in the direct opposite house? Yeah. Rahu is the head of the snake. Ketu is the tail of the snake. Rahu is your obsessions, your addictions. On the higher level, it is your aspirations. It is the reason why you came into being, the thing that you want to accomplish. Ketu says these are things that you've accomplished and mastered in a past life and you no longer care about. You have some last-minute tail end karma to work through with it, but other than that, you've already mastered it and you don't care about it anymore. For example, I have Ketu in my 5th house. 5th house is, among other things, the house of children. Now, if I had Jupiter in a good standing in my 5th house, it would mean I would have a lot of kids. But if you have Ketu in the 5th house, it means that Ketu says, we don't need that. I don't want that. We've done that. So I've never wanted kids. In fact, never at any point in my life have I ever thought that kids was a good idea. My judgment, this is not a fact, it's my judgment. My judgment is that people who are wrapped up in having kids are very narcissistic. It's like, what's this idea of having your kids and who cares about that? I mean, there's a whole world out here. That's my judgment based on my past life, because in a past life, I've mastered that. I've done the father thing and I've had kids, and That's when people, introduce their kids to me and I play with their kids, they go, "Oh my God, you're so good with kids. You should be a dad." And I'm like, that's the last thing that I want to be. The whole idea of, spending 20 plus years of your life completely devoted to raising a child. Oh my God. That's because I've done it before. So that's K2. That's what K2 represents. And having said that, if, that's me. Again, I'm not you. I could make a whole thing about, people who have kids are selfish and narcissistic and won't be spiritual. And that's just not true. Because that's me. That's not you. You are different from me. My job is to help you be you. I'm not trying to make copies of myself. That's not what a good teacher does. Okay, so let me see. Any questions here? Question. You were once asked what you believe happens when you pass. YouTube cut you off. I don't believe YouTube may have cut me off, but I believe I answered it. So go back and watch the video that I just did about what happens when you die. And I talk about that in depth. So I'm not sure which video you're talking about, but I'm pretty sure I answered that question. Yeah, Rahu is in your 7th house, means that you have a strong desire for relationship. Romantic and or with people. The 7th house is interacting with other people. So you have a strong desire, perhaps you have an obsession with it. Any word of advice in the shift for Virgo Rahu in the 11th house? See, I don't know. I'd have to look at your whole chart. So I can't tell you. This eclipse might not have empowered you to the same degree that it did me. Because of my ascendant. So I have Rahu in the 11th house as well. Rahu likes to be in the 11th house. Rahu's very happy there because Rahu wants to achieve things, and the 11th house is your desire for success. So it means that you have a strong desire for success. So it's going to be helpful for you. What is your spiritual path? Is it shaman or druid? So you're obviously new to my channel, Icy Flake. I recommend you spend more time, watching my channel. I can't answer that in one tiny little sentence. I'm an eclectic. So you're going to have to put more time in and watch more of my videos to find out what I am. What's a good tea for energy to replace coffee? Any tea that doesn't have caffeine is a good one. I drink Good Earth, I forget what it's called. Good Earth Spicy and something caffeine free. I love it. Yeah, it's got rooibos in it and all that. Okay. Mike Coolster is asking, can you be omnipotent and omniscient in this world? Yes, but I suspect that you and I may have a different idea of what that means. But the answer is yes. What is my knowledge of number mysticism? Watch my videos. Infernal Eyebrow asks, is something that comes to the brain naturally, like imagination, a spiritual reflection of our reality? No, not all the time. What comes to your imagination will depend on multiple factors. This is why I do not recommend that people do power plants, because power plants are going to expand your imagination. Your imagination is only as good as you are consciously aware. If you are not aware of what's going on in your unconscious, then your imagination could very well just simply reflect your own narcissistic fantasies. This is why I talk about cleaning out the 3 selves. When you clean out your unconscious mind, then your unconscious mind will be a direct connection to the infinite. But until you clean it out, you won't know the difference between your own narcissistic fantasies and something that's coming from the higher realms. That's what meditation is all about. Meditation is about learning how to connect all of the 3 selves so that you will be in alignment so that you can know the difference. Now, when you are in alignment, and when your unconscious is clean and is working to serve you and is connected to the infinite, then more often than not, your instincts, your intuitions will be coming from the other realm. And then you'll be able to know the difference. But until that happens, I can't answer that question for you. Most of us have to go through a long period of learning and learning how to get connected and to clean out our unconscious garbage. And until that happens, we will be at differing levels of ability to know the difference between intuition that's coming from the universe and our own narcissism. You know, I use the word projection a lot. We project onto our world our own narcissism. So that takes time and work. Rahu's in your 4th house. Mom is dead. That's one of the things that can happen. Ways to work on that still, of course. Your whole life is going to be about working through that. So yeah, that's what all the spiritual path is about, is working through all that stuff. Rachel Flowcat, it sounds like you're coming from Western astrology. So Western astrology is different from Vedic astrology. So your North Node may not be in Scorpio at all. So I can't answer your question. The subconscious and the unconscious are two different things. So people confuse that. Most people use the word subconscious and don't know the difference between subconscious and unconscious. There are 3 levels of the mind. There's the conscious level, which is the part that's listening to me right now, which is completely, totally influenced by the unconscious mind. Unconscious means you are not aware of it. So this is what filters what you see, what you hear, what you believe. It all comes from your unconscious. Your subconscious mind bounces back up and down. Your subconscious mind is on the mundane level. It's the part of you that knows what your social security number is, your phone number, your address, your driver's license number. It has all those things that when you need it, you can call on it, it's there, but you're not constantly thinking about having to remind yourself what your social security number is. Your subconscious holds that. But your subconscious is also the projector through which you intend your reality. So magic, when you're using intention to create, manifest reality, it is the subconscious mind that is the lens that does that. Your unconscious is something beneath that. It's the hard drive that has all of your programming that you are not aware of. So they're 2 different things. The subconscious is not connected to the soul. Neither is the unconscious. The soul is separate from all of those, is influenced by all of it, but your soul is actually your conscious mind. Okay. Mike, is it possible to be cursed? Yes, but only if you have chosen to allow that into your reality. Just like, is it possible to be abused by other people? Is it possible to, be a victim of others? Of course it is. But that's only because you, either in this life or in a past life, made the decision to allow that to happen. If you are able to make a different choice, that you'll remove all curses and all. This is why I say you've got to first get rid of the idea of being a victim. And the first thing you have to do if you want to work on my path is you have to let go of all fear-based belief systems. Otherwise, your progression will be limited at best. Is it possible to know the unconscious? It is possible to become aware. So right now, I can't go and tell you everything that's in my unconscious. What I can tell you is what I've become aware of and what is continuing to come to my awareness. So if somebody, I don't know if this is true, this is my belief. If somebody were to be completely 100% conscious to the point where there was no unconscious left in them, they would no longer be human. They would phase out of existence. Okay. Nightmares do come from the unconscious, not the subconscious. Okay, all right. A lot of questions. A lot of them are good. Anyway, I'm going to move on with the teaching here. We're going to do some ads. Again, if you're asking how to get a Vedic reading from me, just watch these ads. If you want a transformation package, if you want to learn advanced shamanism, you're going to see that. Go to thunderwizard.com. So Let's do those. Let's see, where are they? They're way down here somewhere. I'll be back in about 80 seconds. I'm going to take a look at what I want to say next, and then after that I'll take some more questions. Okay, so I want to get myself back onto the topic here, and then I'll take some more questions. Again, think through your questions well. A lot of the questions that, if you're new to the channel, a lot of the questions that you ask will most likely be answered in the other videos. I strongly recommend that you binge watch my channel. It's going to be well worth your time, and it will answer pretty much any question that newcomers have, and will probably create more. And you know, the best thing to do is actually go onto my channel, thunderwizard.com, DOTCOM channel on YouTube, thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, and just start watching the what do you call that? The playlists, and then just start searching. There's stuff in there that's golden that people almost nobody watches. It's a real shame. Go and spend your time. It's well worth your time. It'll answer a lot of your questions. So I want to talk to you about another aspect of this, something that's really come to awareness for me. So, the idea of the eclipse is going to be dependent upon what's going on in your chart. So there are some people that went through this eclipse that didn't really have much of a big change at all. And then there are some like me who were completely transformed and are still being transformed on all levels. I'm really going through a shamanic initiation, another one. Shamanic initiations, if you're not aware of what you see in traditional shamanic paths, is that when the shaman is called, they will have some kind of a near-death experience, or they will go crazy. Sometimes they actually die and come back to life. And many times what will happen is that they will have a vision or a dream that the gods or the spirits or the ancestors will chop them up into pieces, put them inside of a cauldron, mix it up, and then pull them out, put them back together again. And so you can imagine that's the process that has to happen on the unconscious level. You have to be taken apart and then put back together, because then when that happens, then the gods can transmit through you. The spirits can channel you. You'll be able to channel and connect with the universe, but you'll never be the same. You'll always feel different. You'll always feel like you're not part of this world. You're not part of society. And so that can drive somebody crazy if they don't understand what the meaning of that is. So that's why it's important to have a teacher. If there are people that believe that they're shamans, and you don't have a teacher and you're trying to do it alone, you run the risk of being trapped in your own insanity and not knowing the difference between, as I said, your projected narcissism and your actual experiences with the infinite. So that danger is still there. Um, so I'm getting a little off topic here, but so what I wanted to talk about was that, you know, it depends on your chart how this eclipse is continuing to affect you. We know that it's going to affect the United States more directly than any place else, and that's because it was an eclipse directly across the continental United States. And we're seeing that in the political situation here, where now we're seeing indictments starting to come down in the Russia investigation. We're not only seeing that, but we're seeing things like Clinton, some of Clinton's, Hillary Clinton's issues. I mean, I'm not talking about the garbage that's thrown out on right-wing, you know, fake news. By the way, do you know where the word fake news came from? It came from the awareness that the Russians were planting fake stories in Facebook. That's where the word fake news came from, just to be clear. But we're finding out that Hillary Clinton almost lost the nomination, and that she had, you know, some things that she was doing to, or that her campaign was doing to keep Bernie Sanders from winning the nomination. So it's not just Trump whose lies are coming out and being revealed, but it's also everybody else, including all of now the elite in Hollywood. You know, all of the sexual harassment and all that stuff is coming to light. Everything's changing, and that's what this eclipse was. It was Rahu in Leo, which means that Rahu is going to expose all of the secrets of the king. Leo is the king. It's going to expose all of the secrets of the elite. This is going to continue to happen. So it's also going to have a strong effect on anybody who is a Vedic Leo, meaning that their rising sign in Vedic astrology is a Leo. There's a good chance that you will continue to go through major transformation. As I said, this is the most complete transformation I've ever gone through. And, you know, I'm doing okay right now, but man, if you were to talk to me last night or when I woke up this morning or, you know, yesterday, I mean, I was a mess. Because I'm being pulled apart and being put back together on the deepest possible level, which is on the unconscious. And so I said I was going to share with you the one tool that was necessary to survive this, and I will get to that. But one of the other things that has come to my awareness in that is not only am I seeing this based on my chart, this transformation effect from the eclipse, but there's also another tool that I use, which is the Shamanic North Star. Astrological, and this is looking at you from the perspective of the North Star. The North Star goes even higher. It goes up above all of the planets, and it gives a general influence on your life that changes every year, and it goes through 9-year cycles. When you get to the 9th year, 9th years are always transformational, because during the other 8 years you're getting energy from one of the other directions here in the medicine wheel, or what I call the thunder wheel. And each one of those directions has a different energy attached to it and relates to a different part of the human. We're made up of 9 different, we're 9 dimensions that make up the human being. And so through each year, you'll see which part of that is going to affect you the most, and what things you can do to get the most out of that year and the essence of that year. But every 9th year, all 8 of them come together at once. And so you're being bombarded from all parts of your being. And these are the years that anything can happen. These are the years that you can become a millionaire or become homeless. These are the years that you can get married or get divorced. This was the year that my partner died on me. My soulmate died. And it totally rocked me. It's still rocking me. It only happened a couple weeks ago. And I didn't take that into consideration. Actually, now that I think about it, it came to me and I didn't want to know it. So when that thought would come into me that maybe she'll die, I didn't want to know about it. I wasn't ready to hear that. But now that I look back on it, yep. And the other positive side of it is my business is going through the roof. And I am now, as I said, moving into my fantasy dream apartment right on the strand, on the beach, in the beginning where you see me surfing. I'm going to be living in walking distance. I'll be able to look out my window and see that beach right in front of me. So I've got all these things going on, which is what happens in the 9th year. And if I look back 9 years ago, that was when I married my ex-wife. So these are the 9 years. So these are the kinds of things you can get. That's a transformation package thing that's in that. I also do give that to my apprentices. Go to thunderwizard.com if you want to learn how to become an apprentice. But the slots are filling up, so just be aware of that. Okay, so now I want to get to that one key that I talked to you about. So as I said, when you're going through this kind of transformation, and it doesn't have to be because of an eclipse, you know, we go through them all throughout our lives. It has to happen. You know, whenever you're on the verge of evolution, you know, there's some kind of event, just like on this planet. You know, in order for the dinosaurs to become extinct, there was an extinction event. And we've gone through multiple extinction events. So you have to go through these extinction events in your life where everything gets torn apart and you have to rebuild yourself in order to get to that next level. And when you're going through it, the danger is that you can take action on your lower vibrations, your fears. Let's put it that way. You can take action on your fears, and that's how people get like wrapped up in drug addiction, or end up making stupid mistakes and going to jail. That's because they were going through some kind of a transformational period, and they took action based on their fears instead of I should say they reacted to their fears instead of acting. In the term that I'll use is taking contrary action, meaning that you take action that is completely contrary to what everything in you wants to do. And, as I said, this morning, everything in me said, stay in bed. Just stay in bed and just start, going in that black hole of despair. And what's kind of woken me up is that what's been happening is that I've been very fatigued because the loss of my fiance has affected me so deeply on an unconscious level that I can feel that my unconscious is working so hard to try and rebuild itself that it's taking all of my energy. So even if I go out and just have a normal day, after a few hours of running errands or whatever, I'm just wiped. And I come back and I don't take a nap, I just collapse. It's like I go, my hard drive just goes, into sleep mode. And when I wake up from those dreams, it is from those naps, it's the worst, because I can feel I'm in direct connection with my unconscious, and I can feel the emptiness that I'm experiencing on that level. And it's just, I did that yesterday, and I woke up and I was coughing. I had phlegm in my lungs, and I'm not sick. I don't have a cold. And that's the first sign of a major grief problem, because if you know anything about traditional Chinese medicine, grief is experienced through the lungs. So a lot of people that have lung issues, a lot of people that have lung cancer even, that's a result of unresolved grief and despair. And so I was waking up coughing, like, having to cough up a bunch of phlegm when I wasn't sick. And I knew I've got to turn this around, because I'm now starting to head down into that pattern where if I don't do something, if I don't take action, if I don't take contrary action against everything my body wants to do, I'm going to make myself sick. So I don't want to make myself sick. I'm going to make myself better. So I have to take action, which means I have to do things that I just don't want to do. Taking actions like getting up and going to the gym, when my body just, it's like walking through mud. Dealing with clients, getting on the phone and talking to clients. Sometimes, after 2 or 3 clients, it's all I can take, and I just got to sleep, because it's just everything I can do to function. Doing this today, doing this video today, I'm going against that. So this is why the rituals that I teach, not only on the YouTube channel and on the DVDs, but in, when you get a reading from me, if I give you a specific ritual, it is finely tuned for you based on what you need in order to achieve your highest transformation. And so I'm going to give you the tools to go and face those transformations, and sometimes you're actually going to have to experience them. And there's one thing you're going to need in order to survive that, and that is discipline. And so this is why it's so important to do daily spiritual practice, whether that's meditation, whether that's actually doing a mantra and a ritual, whether it's doing ceremony, you know, stuff that gets you out of your head. Sitting around thinking doesn't do it. This is, again, another reason why power plants in many cases are not helpful, because all it does is it keeps you stuck in your head. You have some kind of trip and fantasy and you think you're experiencing something, but in reality you're just going through your narcissism, you know, in your own head. I work with a lot of people, you know, and I some of them, you know, I'll say, listen, here's one of the things that you're going to need to do. You're going to need to do some qigong, because you're going to need to get that energy moving. A lot of people have physical ailments and issues and emotional and psychological ailments and issues, and they need to be able to connect directly to that infinite life force energy, which I teach in Celestial Qigong. They need that, and they won't do it. And I don't, listen, just to let you know, those of you, if you work with me, if I ask you, have you been doing this, have you been doing that, and if I ask you, have you been doing Qigong, if your response to me is something to the effect of, you know, I don't do that, I read this, or I do Reiki or something like that, those are great things, nothing wrong with them, but they're intellectual. You have to get out of your intellect. You have to use your body. A shaman is somebody who, through their body, is able to generate and transmit the energy of the universe, among other things. That takes discipline. Taking power plants takes no discipline whatsoever. It's purely passive. Whether or not your experience is real or not, some people have real experiences. I'm not trying to downplay that. But when that's done in place of actually doing something that takes some effort and some discipline, then it's very likely, you know, at some point you're just going to end up replaying your unconscious narcissism, and you'll be stuck in your intellect. You ever notice that about people who smoke a lot of pot? They are so intellectual, right? So again, I'm not talking about people who, you know, people who are using it for health reasons. That's a whole different deal. So having said that, discipline is what's most important. And because I've had a lot of things where I've had to use a lot of discipline in order to accomplish things. You know, I talk about spirit fighting and the power that I achieved when I was practicing spirit fighting, and I was able to bend the laws of reality and do all kinds of crazy things. I did that purely out of selfishness because I wanted that power. So that's important. You also have to do things that give you a payoff. If you're the kind of person that doesn't like to meditate or sit and do emptiness meditation, then that's the wrong discipline for you. I like to be physical. It's fun. I do it because it's fun. I do the Qigong because it gets me high. The energy of the universe gets me super high. So that's the carrot. But in order to get what I want from it, it takes discipline. I have to do it regularly and consistently. Otherwise, you don't get the benefits from it. This is the one thing, the one key that will get you through it. Because when you go through these transformations, you will be helpless to make the choices. You know, if you go on what you feel like doing, you won't be able to do it. If I went based on what I felt like I could do, I'd still be in bed coughing right now. So, you know, so you have to be disciplined. And so that's why it's so important during the good times when you're feeling okay to put that discipline in your life. This is what the ritual is. I create a ritual for you. If you get a reading from me, I will create a ritual for you that is finely tuned for you, that ideally will be fun for you. Might not be as fun for some as it is for others, but I can guarantee you that if you do that ritual on a daily basis, even if it's for 5 minutes, every day, consistently over time, what's going to happen is you're going to build in just like building a muscle. You got to do it. You got to put some time and effort into it. And then all of a sudden you have this big muscle here. But it's as a result of doing a lot of work. It's the discipline that gets you through that. If you do not have discipline, when you hit that transformation, you run the risk of reacting to your fear and being controlled by your unconscious fears, which means that you may be held back. You might regress and go further back in your development, which nobody ever really, regresses, but it ends up, this is what past life karma is. Somebody's born into, a third world country, and they're born with a physical defect. People get all bent out of shape, and they get so emotionally offended when I say that everything we experience, we've chosen. People say, how dare you? How could those little kids have chosen to be born like that and with those defects? That is a result of choices they made in a previous life where they reacted to their fear. And what the soul did after that life is it went, man, I wish that I had taken the risk and acted contrary to my fear and acted out of fearlessness. And because I didn't do that, I didn't grab and learn what I wanted to learn. So next time I'm going to put myself in a situation where it's going to be harder and harder for me not to face that issue. Have you ever noticed that there are people who have like life-threatening illnesses? Like who's that scientist? What's his name? Hawking. The guy can't even move, and he's the smartest man on the planet. And he has fun. He goes and he'll do voiceovers for for cartoons and for Star Trek. He just has fun. I could not do that if I was him. That is because his soul in a previous life said, you know what? I am going to force myself to be in that position where I have to learn what's valuable. I have to find the joy in life. That's what tragedy is. So whatever difficulties you're facing, whatever it is, it's because you have chosen to do that. Now, I'm having to face that. And it's hard for me to do that. And forgive me, I'm not here to get emotional or get sympathy or pity from people, but it is incomprehensible for me to understand how you can lose a soulmate. Why is that even possible? Once you make that connection, to have them torn away from you. And, it's one thing when they're sick. That's awful, but at least they're there and you can feel them unconsciously. But once their spirit leaves and their time on this planet of working through that past life is over, and they move on to that other plane or back into a new body, they're gone. That soul exists somewhere, but she's not the same. And I can feel it. And my brain doesn't know how to comprehend it. It's so hard. Hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life. You will face that. It will be whatever your challenge is. And I have to walk what I've been teaching my whole life, which is, what would I tell myself if somebody were to come to me and say that? I would say, this is something you and she chose in a past life for both of your evolution. You chose this and you asked her to give you that. And she volunteered to give you that. That's what I would say. And I have to accept that. Because to accept anything else means I'm going to be in that bed until my lungs fill with pain and fluid and I make myself sick, and who knows what else I'll do. It's the only choice I have. And I have this other direction I can go. What's happening right now is, you can see I'm still in my little house. And I'm slowly making the move. I got this place before she died, and I thought, oh great, I'll just move in 2 or 3 days and blah, and then she died. And the move has been horrific. because I'm dismantling our life together. And this place is filled with us because this is where this was our little love nest. And so I'm having to pick and choose what I want to take with me and what I want to get rid of. And every time I go to the new place, which is totally bitchin', right on the beach, I mean, it's my total fantasy. You should, one of these days I'm going to have to make a video. It's just the sound of the waves coming in, and it's just everything I've ever wanted. But it's also equally painful, because every little piece of new furniture, something that I put in, is another little brick that walls me off away from that old life, which will never exist again. Our plans, it's like I'm scratching off another plan that she and I made for our future, because that was supposed to be us moving into that place together. Never going to happen. But I do it. Every day I do it. Every day I get up and I have a list. And I go, I'm going to accomplish 2 or 3 things today. And I go and I get something from the hardware store. Or I go and I get a throw rug or something. Or I put something in there and I start building my perfect little bachelor warrior surfer apartment. Because that's the only choice I have. It's either that or just lie down and die. So you will have to face that, and you will have to have your commitment to yourself, and you will have to have that discipline. This is what ritual will do for you. The only thing that is keeping me alive is the discipline of all the ritual that I've done up until this point. It's the only thing that's keeping me alive. And I can only imagine, as with every transformation I've gone through, that when I'm on the other side of this, I'm going to be at a place I could not have even fathomed. And who knows, I may meet another soulmate. And you know, who knows? I have no idea. I'm open to all of that. I refuse to limit anything from me. So I say this, and have said this, that all the things that I teach are practical. I have no interest in anything that does not make your life better. I have no interest in teaching you any spiritual belief or tradition or practice that doesn't have the practical result to give you the most fulfilling and happy life you've ever had in your whole existence. It's the whole point of all this stuff. So, having said that, I'm going to take a little bit of a break here, blow my nose, get myself back together, and we'll see if there are any questions. Be back in about 80 seconds or so. Okay, I'm back. Let's see how many questions there are. Again, the best way to interact with me is with a question. All right, so let's. I got to scroll up here to find the questions, so forgive me. Again, that's why it's helpful, you know, if you can limit your comments, you know, that helps me to get to the questions faster. The more questions, but I have to scroll through other people's comments in order to be able to find where the questions are. So, let me see here. Wow, a lot of people on here. All right. Where am I? Wow. Okay. Last one was, are nightmares the subconscious? And I said, no, they come from the unconscious. Subconscious is something else. What are examples of fear-based systems? Christianity. If you don't believe in Jesus, you'll die and go to hell. Fear-based system is you live in a matrix, and when you die, there are evil beings who present themselves as light and force you to reincarnate in order to suck the life force energy out of you. Any belief system that is based on fear is a fear-based system. Those are two examples. Let's see here. Again, looking for a question. How do Virgo, Mars, and Jupiter work together in second house? I don't even know if we're talking about Vedic or Western. And that's not enough information. You know, I have to look at your whole chart because there's so many things to look at. So, oh, I've done your chart, haven't I? So let me see here. This is somebody whose chart I've done, so hang on a second. Sorry about that. I didn't look at your name there. Assuming this is the same person I've done, we'll check that out here. So if you get a chart for me, I have it here on my iPad, and I can take a look at it. And this is what happens when people continue to work with me, with my apprentices. I have their chart on here, and I look at that as I'm talking with them, and it helps me to know what they need. So let's see. Let's go to... I don't know how to pronounce this gentleman's name. Oyvind. It's a foreign name to me. Let me see. Where is it? Where are you? There he is. Oyvind. Let's see. You say here you've got Virgo, Mars, and Jupiter in the second house. Yes, that's true. You have Jupiter and Mars together in Virgo. You are a Leo just like me. So that means that you have Sun in the first house. Let me see. And your ascendant is in Magha. So this potentially... like me, this potentially had a strong impact on you, Oyvind. You have Jupiter and Mars in your second house. Your second house is your house of resources that have been given to you in this life. Let me see here one thing. Okay, Jupiter is doing okay. And Mars and Jupiter are okay in those signs. So they're not having too many problems. They're directly, what are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, no, never mind. They are conjunct, which means that they are in close proximity to each other. They're very close together. Mars has the upper hand in your conjunction, which means that the priest, which is Jupiter, has a martial, he's like the shaman warrior or the warrior priest. That's what's happening in your second house. So that can have a strong effect on you in terms of wanting to fight for your ancestral inheritance, your ancestry, your family. It's a good placement. I mean, you know, I don't think we talked a lot about it in your reading, and I think the reason for that is because it's doing okay. It's not really causing any huge issues one way or another. There are other things that I would probably focus on. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but there we go. Icy Flake, he gets paid for each YouTube on streams. That's not true. I don't know where you're coming up with that, Icy Flake. I don't get paid. I might, might get paid like 20 cents if there's an ad and somebody clicks on an ad. But I don't get paid to do this. I don't know what you understand about YouTube, but this doesn't. The only reason yeah, I don't know where you're getting that. Let's see here. Again, looking for the questions. I need the questions. What does a gold rod coming out of two heads mean? They connected and arched like a rainbow with a white egg of white light around them. I got to be honest with you, Joe Boxer Chick 4. That is a very intricate. It's a very intricate vision. I would need to talk to you for a while to find out what that was about. So right off the top, I can't give you an answer to that. Infernal Eyebrow says, question, is it possible to get to the spirit realm and meet a past self or see what our spirit is and looks like? Yes. Go on and watch my videos on weirding and the Ascension process. I teach you how to do that. Question. Heard that timelines are separating. Is this true? Timelines are always separating. So there are infinite numbers of timelines. There is, I want you to just, everybody listening to me, I want you to imagine a life that you think is just totally impossible for yourself. Imagine yourself in a life that could never possibly be true. Okay? Imagine that for just a second. Get anything in there. You're the king of the galaxy. You're Darth Vader, whatever. Whatever you can imagine has to exist. This is not me talking. This is not spirituality talking. This is physics. Physics says that if you can imagine it, it has to exist on another timeline. So that means there are infinite numbers of timelines available to you at any given moment. And every single solitary moment, you are having experiences, making choices, investing emotionally. And each choice that you make is branching off into another timeline, and you are now following a new timeline. This is why it's so important to live in the moment, to live as though every moment was your last, and to take the choice that will, be the most risky towards getting you towards your highest happiness, the one that forces you to go against your fears. Every time you do that, you jump onto a new timeline, which takes you farther and farther into a realm of higher and higher awareness. And every time you make a choice based on your fears, you go into another timeline which takes you further and further down a path which will make you go through major karmic issues. Every single solitary moment. Go and watch the videos about weird, you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't have time to talk about it right now. That's a great question. Again, looking for the questions. It's great you guys all have opinions and you want to voice them. I understand that. I love voicing my opinions, but Romneon Germany question, how can I concentrate my spiritual powers onto something? I tried meditation, but it feels... So Romneon Germany, you haven't worked with me, right? You haven't gotten a reading from me or had a session with me, right? Because if you did, I would have given you and told you exactly how to do that for you. So what you're saying is that your form of meditation that you think you know, which might work for somebody else, does not work for you. So I don't know what else to tell you. If you have a session with me, I can help you, but go on to my channel and pick one of those Qigong routines that works. Stop trying to concentrate your spiritual powers right now and just work on becoming aware of what's in your unconscious. What are you afraid of? Live every moment and ask yourself, am I taking an action based on what I want in my soul, or am I trying to live to impress other people, get other people to love me, or meet somebody else's, or I'm afraid I won't make enough money? Are you acting out of fear, or are you acting out of what is in your greatest? All that other stuff, none of it matters. All that other stuff, all the meditation, all the ritual, all the ceremony is all designed to teach you how to do that in your waking life. This right now is the spiritual moment. This is where all the power is. All of the discipline, all the practices are there to teach you what to do in this moment. Okay? Let's see here. Looking for the questions. What does okay, yeah, you've asked me about that. I don't know how to answer that. The gold rod thing. Q, Void Light 303 asked, why is it that the greatest moments of joy are when I am alone? That sounds like a pretty good deal, because that means, assuming that I take that on a positive note, means that when you are alone, you experience great joy. That means that you are someone who is aligned with the spirit realm, and that a lot of people work very hard to get that. There are people that can't function without being with other people. So feel lucky that you are somebody that doesn't need other people to feel joy. Now, if what you're saying on the opposite side of that is that you can't stand being around people, and people frighten you or depress you or bother you, and you have to be alone in order to feel joy, that means you got some problems with human beings that you need to work out. That's a problem. That's not a strength. So I don't know which side, and it could be a combination of both. You could be somebody who has the ability to gain joy out of being with themselves, connected to the universe, and somebody who doesn't know how to interact with other people, and so you have to be alone in order to feel safe and have joy. So I don't know. I'd have to get to know you better to know. Something evil pulled you out of your body. The only way that something evil... There are evil entities out there, just like there are evil people out there. But the only way that some evil entity can pull you out of your body is if on some unconscious level you are seeking that. So again, I'm just going based on this. I don't know you. I could be totally wrong. But just based on what you've now written, looking at both of those sentences in that paragraph, I would say that you are somebody that has a lot of pain surrounding human beings, that you have been hurt in this life and in previous lives, and you have chosen to push yourself away from people, and you get joy out of meditating and staying within yourself. This is why a lot of people do drugs, because they can't handle being with other people, so they go off and they get, wrapped up in themselves. So you're able to do that, but what's really happening underneath that, there's still an unconscious level, meaning you're not aware of it, where you have deep levels of pain and you are incredibly lonely. And so what ends up happening is you become a target for predators. No, predators do not go after prey they cannot take down. So that means that, whether it's a human being or whether it's a spiritual entity, you are making yourself available because that is something you want to avoid. In other words, being yanked out of your body by an evil entity is preferable than having to go deal with human beings. That's more painful than the evil entity. See what I mean? You created it. Again, I could be wrong. I'm just going on what you've written. Looking for the questions. Looking for the questions. Again, need the questions. Question. Soul Radiance. I practice Negong, which is the next step from Qigong. Negong means internal work. Qigong means energy work. Negong technically is Qigong. In fact, the Chinese, if you go to China and you ask them what's the difference between Negong and Qigong, they'll say, what are you talking about? They're both Qigong. They're both energy work. One is internal and one is external. That's not above or below. Negong sometimes takes more concentration, and sometimes they can be very high level. I teach Negong. The celestial Qigong is actually a form of Negong and Qigong combined. But also Negong sometimes is less because it gets so complicated that it's actually used, a lot of times in China what they'll do is, and a lot of practices are like this and they don't even know it, they will make these really intricate kinds of Negong where you have to go deep inside and see the yellow and the blue and talk to the little guy and go in here and pull this there. That's actually designed to keep you from the really simple, powerful stuff, because it gives you a feeling of accomplishing something. It gives you some energy, but at the same time, it feeds your ego because it thinks you're doing something. So I could be wrong. I don't know you. Yeah, telekinesis is not a form of high level. Go back and listen to what I say about spiritual powers. As I've said before, I have done that. There was a period of time where I had crazy power and I could do things that were not humanly possible. I could probably do them again if I put my mind to it, but I found out that it means nothing. This challenge that I'm going through, none of that would have gotten me through this challenge. It's toys. It's fun. There's nothing advanced about spiritual powers. They're fun. It's like saying I'm an advanced person because I have, whatever, 16-inch biceps. Well, it just means I lift weights. Doesn't mean anything about who I am. You know, okay, I have a little bit of discipline. That's a good thing. But, you know, these muscles don't do anything for me other than, you know, make me feel good physically and perhaps add to my ego boost at 54 years of age. But it doesn't mean a damn thing in terms of my spiritual advancement. So to answer your question, I do teach that. Go to Celestial Qigong. If somebody lives in my area and is willing to go through the rigors of training, I will teach them the spirit fighting, but I don't have any students and I may never have any students again. You know, Icy Flake, man. Do you want to be a victim? Because you're acting like a victim. Dang, I wish I hard money enough to be a patient of yours. The only reason you don't have enough money to be a patient of mine is because you haven't made the decision to create it in your life. But by saying, I wish I had enough, you've now created a reality where you don't have enough. And what do you get from that? So here's some free advice. If you want to be my student, drop that and make the decision that you do have enough. And then you'll have to face your unconscious fears. You obviously have a fear of success, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be saying, I wish I had more money. And now you can start to just make the decision that you are going to do whatever it takes to have everything you want in life. That right there, if you commit to that decision every single day, regardless of how much money you do or don't have, eventually you will have what you want. But you will have to face the fact that there's a part of you that wants to stay poor because it does something for you. And only you can figure out what that is. I've gone through mine and figured out up until this point in my life what those are. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself. So there's some free advice for you. That's worth more than anything I could ever charge. I couldn't charge enough to give you the value of what that teaching is, if you can apply it. Thunder Wizard, do you Facebook? Yes, you can go to Michael William Denny on Facebook. You can go to Path of the Thunder Wizard on Facebook. But I don't spend any time there, so don't bother messaging me there. I don't go there. If you want to message me, you can email me. Actually, don't email me unless you're unless you have a question about becoming a client, or because otherwise I just get a bunch of emails that I can't answer. You can leave questions in the comments section of any of my videos, and I'll answer those for free. But yeah, you can go to those. I got to be honest, I just don't do Facebook. This is where I spend most of my time dealing with the public, is here on YouTube. Looking for the questions. There's something here that says show or hide, which means that probably somebody did spam, and I've got this thing that filters out spam, so I guess I won't look at that. Thank you for the positive things, Alicia and Susie Yoten's wife. I appreciate that. I thank you. I'll take all the love anybody wants to give me. I sure need it. Sorry to see Rachel Flocat. You lost somebody as well, and my apologies. I know what that's like. Obviously. All right, I hate when this does that. I'm looking at it and then somebody will type in and then the thing bounces up and now I got to go back and find where I was. Let's see. All right. Petey in Jersey says, wants to get a reading, need to for my birth certificate to get exact time. Yes, I do need exact time in order to give you an accurate reading. Lindsay Rogers asks, I'm asking for a friend, what stone do you recommend for Shukra planet to bring in the energy for him? Well, assuming that Venus wants to work with him. Again, as you know, I need to see what the 3 planets are. Venus might not be the one for him. But assuming Venus is working for him on one of the 3 levels of his mind, then a diamond, even if it's a cubic zirconia, and things similar to that. Moonstone is similar to that, even though it's for the moon. But healing stones like that, I would say diamond or moonstone would be my first 2 choices. Can you talk about the benefits of medicine wheel? Thank you for your question, Lindsay, by the way. Nice to see you. Dwayne Oxner says, can you talk about the benefits of medicine wheel Qigong? That is one of my DVDs. You can go on to Amazon, type in Michael William Denny, and where it says video and TV, and all my DVDs should come up. Medicine wheel Qigong is postures. So that's different from say celestial Qigong, where we are doing some mudras and some postures, and it's different from, say, the Thor's Hammer Qigong, which is free, by the way, on the YouTube channel. Those of you who are messed up about money, go and spend time on my channel, binge watch my channel. You'll get hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of information on that. I'm not kidding you. There's stuff on my channel that's for free, that if this were any other situation, that I've paid out of the ass hundreds or thousands of dollars to learn from teachers. So you have no excuse. If money is a problem, you have no excuse. Everything you need is on my YouTube channel. If you have the ability and the discipline to go through there and find it and practice it every day, and if you are an advanced soul, you don't need me or anybody else. So no more excuses, no more complaints. Having said that, Medicine Wheel Qigong is one of my DVDs. The benefit of Medicine Wheel Qigong is it works to open the meridians, and it connects you to the different directions. Each one of the directions has a different world, which the 9 worlds, there are 9 worlds that we are connected to here in Middle Earth. There are that is the 9th one. There are 8 other worlds which are in each of the 8 directions. And you do different postures which connect you to the different realms. And when you do that, you learn how to connect directly to the vibration of that realm, that dimension. You can then open yourself up to make you more susceptible to communicating with the beings of those realms. You have the ability to balance yourself on multiple levels. On the advanced levels of that, you can then learn how to balance different realms to do different things. If you do that in combination with advanced rune shamanism, you can come up, I mean, it's endless what you can do with that. But it's mainly what will happen is that you will open up realms within yourself, but it will also open up all the meridians in your body. That's what standing postures do. There's moving, there's mudras, there's sitting meditation, and then there's standing postures. And I'll give you an example. You know, there are guys that I know that are teachers that are, you know, in their 70s and 80s who are the most powerful men I've ever seen in my life. If, you know, and the thing about once you get to that level and you're that old, they'll never show you how powerful they are. There are people walking around this planet that have powers that you cannot even fathom, and they'll never let you know. Never. Why don't they go to the UFC? They will never, you'll never see them there. But people who could take out entire armies, they exist. And when they get to that level, they do standing postures. They will sit and just, or stand into a standing posture. Sometimes they'll stand all night. And what happens is that they end up with so much energy in their body, because what ends up happening is that the earth and the stars will start to then connect you to the planet. Your meridians will open up and you will start to expand until your body fills with just unbelievable amounts of energy, but you won't even feel it. And then, you know, then you end up, you're a whole other different person. Medicine Wheel Qigong can be one of those practices. One of the things you could do is you could find, you know, again, you can find this in your chart. If I look in your chart, I can tell you which direction is your direction. You can find your direction and you can stand in that posture. And if you're able to do it for 45 minutes at a time, up 2, 3, 4 hours a day, there's no limit to what you can do with that energy. This is the kind of stuff I'm teaching you guys. People have no clue that that's what I'm just handing out like candy. Medicine wheel qigong is one of those practices. So I hope I answered your question. Joe Boxer Chick 4 question: what does a gold rod? Okay, I think, yeah, you keep asking me that question. I don't know, or maybe I'm seeing the question from before. I would have to talk to you to know what that means for you. I can't. It's so precise. I'm not familiar with those particular symbols in that. Yeah, that sounds really intense and powerful and beautiful, but I wish I had an answer for you. I don't. All right. Natalia Lokia, good to see you. Hello, Natalia. She says, good day, teacher. What is your desired personal outcome for these changes? I don't know which change. You mean my changes? Well, since this goes under the rune of Yuhuaj, Yuhuaj is involuntary personal transformation. So obviously on a deeper level, on a soul level, I had an idea of what I wanted to accomplish with this challenge in my life. I am not consciously aware of that because I'm in the midst of it. I can see, I'm just starting to see that there is huge potential there. But what I can tell you is that I want to get out of the limitations I've been in and, you know, live my dream. And that to me is the height of my dream is to live in that perfect, you know, surfing beach environment where I can have my office and I can do all these videos and my practices and all of that, and walk out my house and be at my there's no other place in the world I'd rather be. There's no other beach in the world I'd rather be. You know, I haven't seen all the beaches in the world, I don't know, but in the ones I've seen, that's the one I want to live at. And then I'd like to be able to really enjoy the abundance that's coming to me and really live in it and be comfortable in it. And eventually I'd like to find another life partner. I'd like to have that kind of love again. Because, you know, if you're watching, you know, in the beginning of the video, I share that was without a doubt the happiest time of my life. And there were long stretches within that where I was completely fulfilled. And I wanted nothing and I needed nothing. I was so happy. I've never experienced that before and don't know if I ever will again. But I would like to have that again. I hope that that's in my future. And I know that I will see her again in whatever forms we have, and so that gives me some solace. It's the rest of this life. I know I'll never see her again. And that's what's killing me. That's hard. Sorry. Give me a second. Give me a few seconds to put myself together here. Okay, thank you. What do they say? Big girls don't cry. Tough guys don't cry. It's hard. It feels like it's killing us. For a tough guy to cry, that's not easy. I'm not an actor anymore, so it's crying is not something I do voluntarily, unless it's to get myself better. So I do force myself to cry if it's coming up. I cry like a little baby and scream and wail because I know if I don't, it'll stay stuck in me, and I don't want to get sick from all this. So I do. Dr. Stephanie Farwell, ND. I don't know what that means, but welcome. She asks, how do the realms relate to the dimensions? I don't know what you mean by that. You have two different definitions for realms and dimensions. I'm using them interchangeably. There are 9 dimensions in the world tree. There are 9 realms in the world tree. There are 9 worlds in the world tree. Each one of those realms is a part of our entire makeup. We are made of at least 9 different aspects. We are made up of 3 separate selves within a 9-dimensional matrix we call a human being. We are a hologram of the universe, which is made up of 3 realms and 9 dimensions. You know, that's why there's always Trinity. That's why the number 3 and the number 9 come up everywhere. It's because that's what has created the universe. I talk about that in some of the other videos. Susie Yoten's wife, any advice about faring forth? Are you talking, is that I don't know, is that phrase faring forth, is that some kind of shamanic, like Asatru word for shamanic ritual or something? Is it our fetch that does this? Our fetch is your spirit animal. You know, I got to be honest with you. You know, when it comes to spirit animals, I have experience with them. I can tell you generally about them. It's not really my big, you know, expertise. I can tell you what the lore says about it and what, you know, is found all over the world. I know that I have them and have worked with them. But so I wish I could answer your question. There are multiple ways to have experiences to do shamanic journeys, if that's what you mean by faring forth. Using a spirit animal is one of them, but it's not the only way. I kind of gravitate towards, you know, I want to get to the point where I don't need the tools as much. Using a spirit animal to me is like a tool. Qigong is a tool, meditation, mantra, these are all tools. I use the ones that work best for me. I'm wanting to get to the place where I don't need them. I still need them and I still use them, and I'm getting better and better at moving in and out of the realms without having to use anything. But so I don't know if I answered your question or not. You know, you'd have to talk to somebody who's really, their expertise is in using spirit animals, because I'm probably not the right person for that. Can something, Romney on Germany asks, can something be created evil in nature, or are all evil beings broken souls? You know, I just recently read somebody's account of their near-death experience, and when they were on the other side, they had the experience that there's no such thing as evil. And I can't completely identify with that, but there's something about that that rings true, that we perceive evil based on our fears. You know, I would be afraid of living in Nazi Germany, and I would see Hitler as an evil person, but that's because I'm afraid of him. I would be afraid of that guy. I'd be afraid of what he could do to me or my loved ones. That's why I get so bent out of shape when people come onto my channel and drop that racist crap. I get so bent out of shape about that. My best friends are people of other races. My teachers are people of other races. So I see racism as evil, and I see racists as evil people, and I want to hurt them. But that's because I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid they'll hurt the people that I'm closest to, and I want to protect them. So that's my fear. So evil is only based on what you have to lose. But the idea from the perspective of the source is that we're all here to learn, and we're all evil to some degree. You know, there are people out there that I've harmed in my life. You know, I'll be straight with you. There was a guy tried to pick a fight with me the other day. And I have to live up to my teaching, which is I attracted that. And nothing happened. Thankfully, he backed down. And I'm very grateful too, because I've made a vow that under no circumstances will I ever physically harm somebody. And I'm trained, and I know how to take somebody out and harm them very quickly. I know how to do that. This guy doesn't know that. And he put himself into harm's way, and that's because I created that out of my grief. And let me tell you how I figured out how I created that. So just to give you an example, this is how harsh you have to be with yourself. You have to be really honest with yourself. Because if you don't, then your unconscious takes hold and it creates a pattern, and then it doesn't go away very easily. So I don't want this to stay. So I have to be honest. So I'm going to share with you. I'm going to, reveal my soft underbelly to you. I became aware. Let's see if I can keep myself together while I explain this. I became aware that I felt guilty for my partner's passing. And she had, come on, hold it together. She had hoped that I would be able to heal her. And she had hoped I would be able to teach her to heal herself. And even though I never bought into that, I let her have, she'd look at me and she'd say, "You're here to heal me. I know that you'll heal me. You're a shaman." And I never talked her out of that because, one, I don't know if it's true or not, and two, I also know that people's beliefs will create everything in their life. So if she saw me as what was going to heal her, I was not going to talk her out of that. But I never owned up to it or said, "Yes, I'm here to heal you." I never talked her out of that. I always tried to help her learn how to heal herself. But she had that right up until the end. She wanted me to heal her. And obviously I didn't. And I feel guilty for that. And I created a situation where I was going to walk into a situation where somebody was going to beat me up. Because when I look back on it, I wouldn't have fought back. I took the bait. He confronted me. He provoked me, and I took the bait. And I think maybe just me staring at him, seeing that I wasn't even trying to defend myself, I think that scared him. And he backed off. But I'm not proud of that. But that was an evil act on my part. If I had followed through with what my initial instinct was, which was to take all of this pain and pound it into somebody else, I never would have been able to forgive myself. Because that's not who I am. So this is what I mean when I say that in every moment you have to be willing to look at what your fears are and to take action against those fears. Take action towards your best self. And I'm thankful that in that moment there was enough awareness in me to know that I had no intention and no desire to hurt that man. And I wouldn't have. If he had taken a swing at me, I would have taken it. I would have stood there and take it. Because I'm not going to fight back. I'm not going to use my skills on somebody else. I'm just not going to do it. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's some of my thoughts about what evil is. What is your angle on undoing damage from a toxic parent? Well, that's a very long conversation. That's not something I can answer in one question. I'd have to work with you. We'd have to talk about it. We'd have to do a lot of digging because toxic parents put a lot of crap in people and it builds up over time. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of discipline. The first place to start is to do your mantra and your ritual. Second thing to do is to work with somebody like me or a therapist or a counselor, 12-step group, whatever it is, and do the stuff every single day to knock down that stuff. But know that you have been programmed. You've allowed yourself to be programmed. You had a past life desire to be programmed in this way so that you would be forced to overcome that. And that is going to take some time. So again, I can't answer that. I don't know the specifics. I would need to know more about you. somebody's banging on his ex. I understand that. I still have, my ex-wife. We went through some stuff, but I picked her. So you picked your ex. However bad you think she is, you picked her. So deal with it. Okay. Looking for the questions. Question, Bill K. Are you familiar with running your chi or temple stances? Temple stances would be standing postures. I don't know if that's a particular style of standing postures, but I'm pretty sure that that's what that is. Running your chi, I don't know what that means. So that sounds like a specific kind of mental direction of energy. So I'm not familiar. I haven't heard those phrases, so I can't comment on. Does the shadow of fear save the light of oneness from not existing? I don't understand your question. I sense that without illusion there is only perfect oblivion. I don't understand your question. Based on what you've said, it sounds like you're trying to imagine something you haven't experienced. And it also sounds, for whatever reason, it's not making me want to agree or disagree. I think there's some limitation in you. I think that there's something beyond that understanding. It sounds a little limiting and negative to me, but I could be wrong. Soul Radiance. Question, Michael. When you talk about the 9 realms, are these actual places or are they more archetypal states of mind or both? Yes to all of those questions. Lots of nice things. Thank you for saying nice things. I'll take all the love anybody wants to give me. I need it. Erica Vox Nunez says, blessings. Have you ever battled with stepping away from the shamanic path since you responded to the inner call? Of course. It was a total struggle. That the shamanic path is not what society wants you to do. No, man. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be part of. I wanted people to like me. I wanted to be successful and have all the money and the stuff. I wanted to be like everybody else. I didn't want to be this strange little kid that saw stuff and felt things differently and people were afraid of, and that when I talked about my experience, people would look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? The kindest thing that people have said to me who weren't in vibe with that, when I'd share about some of my experiences, they go, that doesn't happen to most people, right? And they meant that as a compliment, like you're seeing things beyond what most people see. So of course not. I didn't want that. Of course I've struggled with that. I still struggle with it. It was not, I didn't wake up one morning and think to myself, what would be a really good idea? Would be to go onto YouTube and just expose everything that goes on with me to the world. None of that sounds like a good idea to me. I keep doing it because people have told me, and they show me with the success in my practice that I'm helping them, and that's my job. And I want the success, and I want to follow my highest path, so I keep doing it. But I don't do it because I think it's a good idea. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Looking for the questions again. Witcher says, let go of the guilt. I completely agree. I see it as an awareness of myself. And even though what I'm sharing with you is that I became aware that I felt guilty. And this is consciousness. In my unconscious mind, even though I knew that consciously throughout the life of my partner that I wasn't the one that was here to heal her on that level in that way. But it doesn't change the fact that on an unconscious level I bought into it because I loved her. I loved her, and that's my selfish attachment. I wanted to make her happy. And I didn't want her to be angry at me that I didn't give her what she wanted. That's my human limitation that I have to overcome. So yeah, I felt guilty, but and I may still feel that, but I'm exposing it to the light of day. I'm becoming conscious of it. It's no longer in my unconscious. It was in my unconscious until I forced that scenario where I had to face me on the verge of breaking one of the most sacred vows I've ever made to myself, which would have been a betrayal of my entire commitment as a spiritual man. And forcing that I was on the verge of breaking that's when I became aware of what was going on in my unconscious. So yes, I will let go of that, and I appreciate that, and I do need to continue to do that, and who knows what else will come up. There's obviously more, or I wouldn't be crying every 10 seconds. So all right, so there's that. I don't see any more questions. So let's see here. I'll take a little bit of a break. We've been on for a while. I'll see if I have any last minute thoughts and any last minute questions. So let's just watch. I put so much time and effort into these intros. Let's just watch this again, because it's the only times I get to show them is once for every time I do this. Okay, so that last image that I just put up there is, I guess, the point of all this. Now, in the beginning, I show the picture of the, kind of what looks sort of like Rahu, smashing the earth and destroying it, which is the experience that comes from eclipses lots of times, and certainly what I'm going through. My whole world is coming apart in good ways and bad, challenging ways and in happy ways. But the whole point is that no matter what we go through, they are opportunities to shift into another dimension, a portal of reality. If I am able to continue to surrender to this process, to surrender where I need to surrender, and to fight where I need to fight, if I continue to do that and live consciously, and I'm doing the best I can, we can always improve. If I continue to do that, I can feel that I am going to enter a whole new dimension of reality. I am creating a timeline right now that is shattering the limitations of my previous timeline. I can tell that at some point, maybe years or decades from now, I will look back on my partner leaving and I will say that was the best thing she ever did for me. Because it, and I could even say, whatever she gave me in this life. And I can say to you, she healed me. She healed me of most, if not all, of the childhood, you know, bad patterns I picked up from my own mother and father about me. She healed them. Nobody's ever been able to do that. And she didn't do anything except just be herself. But she is, or the effects of that, or maybe she is, I don't know. The things that are happening ever since she died, just before she died and ever since she died, all the stuff that's coming together in my life is, I mean, I'm not doing it. You know, I take a lot of pride in working hard and, you know, achieving things, but I'm telling you, this isn't me doing it. There are some other forces putting all this together, and I feel as though I'm going through a wormhole into another dimension. So we'll see where that takes me. And so that's the whole point of all this, that no matter how difficult, no matter how challenging, whatever transformation you're going through, if you can do those two things where you can, on the one hand, be willing to let go of all of that negative past stuff. And, you know, as you can see, based on what I've shared with you, it would be very easy for me to get into a victim mentality. It would be so easy to do that. I mean, I could spend the rest of my life, you know, shaking my fist at the universe. Why did you do this to me? She should have lived, and you know, death is so unfair. I could do all of that. It would be very easy to do. If you have the ability to look when you're in that, and to look and say, what is it that I want to do? You know, what victim mentality stance do I want to hold on to? And at the same time, you have to be real. One of the things I will say about my fiance, there were some things that she was unwilling to look at, and I believe that it had a lot to do with what killed her. And so she's my greatest teacher. So I'm not talking about denial. I'm not talking about being positive and put on a smile and everything's good, right? Everything's positive. I've seen cancer patients kill themselves with that. They put on the smile, it'll kill them. Because they're not dealing with the pain that's underneath that they don't want to look at. You got to be willing to look at it. And if you can't do it alone, and none of us really can, then you've got to get help. You've got to stick your hand out and ask for somebody to help you. And as I said in the private video on the Patreon channel, I said, if any of you have sought me out on any level, it's because there's something in you that's broken that needs to be fixed. And I may not be the person who has the ability to fix it, but I represent the symbol in you that can fix it, and you need to interact with that symbol. You need to be able to see that what's being reflected back to you in a more objective way, so that you can then look at it. It's not an easy process. I've shared this. I have my teacher is still in my life. And, you know, I'm not going through it now, but there were periods where every single week I was going into, you know, our sessions saying, I don't think I should work with you anymore. I don't want to pay the money. I this, you that. And I mean, he sat there and listened to me just tear him a new, you know, a-hole on all of his perceived limitations. And, you know, at the end of those discussions, every time I would be aware that it was my unconscious resistance. And it was like every week. The patience of this guy, every week, he'd have to sit there and listen to my unconscious, you know, and sometimes I was just abusive. I wanted out. He'd say, there's the door right there. Nobody's chaining you to the chair. You can leave anytime you want. But let's talk about it. What have you got to lose? How can you lose anything by talking about it? You're this tough guy. You can sit there and talk about it. Let's talk about it. Right? If it's time for you to go, there you go. You got to have somebody like that. Somebody that can listen to all of that, who will allow you to go to the depth of all of your resistance and all of your unconscious issues and won't be fazed by it. You need somebody like that. We all do. So Anyway, that's what is waiting for us on the other side of these problems, these challenges, these transformations, is a wormhole to a new destiny. And I am thankfully trying to be completely transparent with you guys. I've always tried to be this way, and I'm doing it with you now. I want to be the example. I want to show you this is how I do it, you know, and this is how it's done. And one of the things is being real. And I want to create a world where people can do that. And we don't have that world. You know, we still have a place where people tell you, you know, they shame you for your negative feelings. They shame you for your sadness, for your grief, for your anger, for your fear, because they're afraid of looking at it within themselves. I want to create a world where it's safe, that you can say and feel anything, and not have there be any negative repercussions, because that's the only way we can get conscious. When we're conscious, then we can clean out our unconscious mind, which is, as you know, if you follow my teachings, the unconscious mind is the powerhouse. That 95% of the iceberg that's under the water, the stuff you have no idea you're carrying around with you that's making all of the decisions for you. When you can become conscious and clean that up and connect all of the three selves to all of the 9 realms, then you will live in that bliss where what you think will manifest. I am seeing that in my own life. That means I'm doing something right. I'm making some progress in that. If one day I wake up and I go, you know what I want? I want this. And then next week, next month, 6 months from now, it's exactly what I said I wanted. And from my perspective, it just sort of fell into place. That's how it all works. And when we can all live in that, can you imagine the bliss? Because when you're living your true path, it is impossible for you to obstruct someone else's path. That's an important lesson. I want you to remember that. That sounds really great. Let me see if I can repeat it. When you are living your true path, it is impossible for you to obstruct someone else's path. If you are living your true path and somebody else is telling you, you are obstructing my path, the only thing that is happening is that you are showing them that their path is not the right one for themselves. If you are trying to live your path and you think somebody else, by being themselves, is keeping you from your happiness, it means you're not on your true path. It is impossible to be on your path and obstruct anybody else from their true path. Impossible. Okay. I'm done babbling for tonight. I thank you, my friends, so much for being here for me. You are truly my family, my friends. I could not do this without you, and I thank you for that. So, having said that, may the bliss of your eternal soul shine in front of you. May the ancestors shine their moonlit path of love and learning upon you. And may you find that bliss that I had, which I may have again, where you need and want nothing, and you have everything. May you have that as well. Until next time, my friends.